Humans invented forks, elevators, and Wi-Fi, then still forgot how gravity works. Fact 1. The humble refrigerator looks like a quiet kitchen box, but inside it runs one of the smartest everyday physics tricks in your house. Heat transfer. Most people think a fridge creates cold, like it's manufacturing winter behind the milk. It doesn't. It actually steals heat from inside and throws it into your kitchen like an unwanted guest. A refrigerant fluid evaporates, absorbs heat, gets compressed, and releases that heat outside through coils on the back. That warm back panel isn't broken, it's doing its job. Your leftovers survive because physics runs a tiny invisible heist 24 hours a day. Every time you open the door and stare blankly for inspiration, the fridge is basically saying, "Close it, I'm working." Fact 2. Your microwave is proof humanity wanted dinner faster and accidentally gave itself a physics lesson. Inside that little glowing box, electromagnetic waves bounce around like angry, invisible ping pong balls. These microwaves specifically target water molecules, making them vibrate rapidly, and that vibration becomes heat. So no, the plate is not magically cooking your pasta out of spite. The water inside the food is doing the heavy lifting. That's also why leftover pizza becomes either lava or Antarctic research material with no middle ground. The turntable exists because engineers knew humans would absolutely blame the machine instead of understanding wave patterns. It spins food so the heating is more even, which is science's polite way of saying, "We're trying to protect you from yourself." Fact 3. Ceiling fans are one of civilization's greatest illusions because they do not actually lower room temperature. They just lie beautifully. A fan moves air across your skin, helping sweat evaporate faster, and evaporation removes heat from your body. The room itself stays basically the same. The fan is not cooling the air, it's helping your body panic more efficiently. That's why leaving a fan on in an empty room is like paying electricity to impress nobody. Yet every summer, millions of people stare at a fan like it's performing climate control miracles. It's not. It's just weaponized airflow with excellent marketing. Physics looked at human discomfort and said, "I can't fix your life, but I can make your forehead less dramatic." Fact 4. The elevator is basically society agreeing to trust cables we never inspect. Every day, millions of people step into a metal box, press a button, and calmly let physics decide their fate. But elevators work because of counterweights, pulleys, and tension, not blind optimism. Most elevators are balanced with a heavy counterweight that offsets the cabin, so the motor doesn't have to lift the full load every time. It mostly manages the difference in weight, which saves enormous energy. That sudden feeling in your stomach when it starts moving is acceleration playing tricks on your body, reminding you gravity still has opinions. Elevators are less about lifting people and more about negotiating with gravity politely enough that everyone gets to floor 12 without emotional damage. Fact 5. The zipper is one of the smallest mechanical miracles people disrespect daily. It looks simple until it breaks, and then suddenly it becomes the most important invention since indoor plumbing. A zipper works through precise interlocking teeth, guided by a tiny slider that forces both sides together at exactly the right angle. It's basically relationship counseling for fabric. The shape of the slider controls whether the teeth lock or separate, using pressure and geometry rather than magic or prayer. When a zipper jams, it usually means friction has entered the chat and chaos follows. Engineers turned a tiny metal track into a reliable closure system for jackets, bags, and dignity itself. Physics quietly protects civilization from embarrassing public moments every single morning. Fact 6. Your toilet flush is powered by gravity, pressure, and the collective refusal to discuss it at dinner. People imagine some hidden machine heroically making everything disappear, but the real star is the siphon. When you press the handle, water rushes from the tank into the bowl, raising the water level until it triggers a siphon effect. That creates a powerful pull that carries waste through the pipes and into society's least celebrated transportation network. Then the tank refills, preparing for humanity's next bad decision. It's elegant engineering disguised as bathroom routine. The curved pipe underneath is not decorative. It prevents sewer gases from returning like unwanted exes. Your toilet is essentially a gravity-powered exit strategy, and frankly, it deserves more respect than most household appliances. Fact 7. Sunglasses are not just fashion for people avoiding eye contact. They are portable physics shields fighting a daily war against light. Sunlight includes ultraviolet radiation, which can damage your eyes over time like tiny aggressive accountants charging interest. Good sunglasses block those UV rays, but polarized lenses do something even smarter. They reduce glare by filtering light waves traveling in specific directions. That's why water, roads, and car hoods stop looking like they're auditioning for a spotlight. Polarization sounds like a political argument, but it's really optics saving your afternoon drive. Your eyes naturally struggle with reflected horizontal light, and sunglasses quietly fix that mess. So yes, those dramatic oversized sunglasses are technically science equipment with celebrity branding. Fact 8. The humble bicycle is one of physics' greatest flexes because it turns balance into transportation. At first glance, it seems ridiculous that two thin wheels and human panic can create stable movement. But bicycles stay upright because of momentum, steering correction, and angular motion. As the wheels spin, they create gyroscopic effects that help stability. But the bigger hero is your brain constantly making tiny steering adjustments without asking permission. You are basically a biological balancing algorithm wearing sneakers. The chain system transfers force efficiently, turning leg effort into motion with impressive elegance. Every hill reminds you Newton is still employed. Riding a bike feels simple because your body learned the math long before your brain learned the vocabulary to explain it. Fact 9. The smoke detector is the most dramatic little device in your house because it turns invisible danger into a personal insult at 3 in the morning. Most home smoke detectors use ionization or photoelectric physics to detect fire before you can smell disaster. In ionization models, a tiny amount of radioactive material ionizes the air, allowing electricity to flow between two plates. When smoke enters, it disrupts that flow, and the alarm screams like it discovered betrayal. Photoelectric versions use a beam of light that gets scattered by smoke particles, triggering the same panic concert. That chirping low battery warning always happens at night because apparently electronics enjoys psychological warfare. Physics gave us an early warning system, and humanity repaid it by hitting it with a broom. Fact 10. The electric kettle is one of the fastest arguments against patience ever invented. You pour in water, press a switch, and suddenly physics begins speedrunning breakfast. Inside, an electrical current passes through a heating element with resistance, and that resistance converts electrical energy into heat. It's basically controlled inefficiency, and somehow that's genius. As the water molecules move faster, the temperature rises until boiling begins, and your tea gains emotional importance. Many kettles also use a clever steam sensor that automatically switches them off, preventing your kitchen from becoming an accidental laboratory. That loud click when it finishes is the sound of thermodynamics ending the debate. It's simple, efficient, and proof that civilization advances mainly because humans hate waiting for coffee and tea. Fact 11. The escalator is what happens when stairs decide they are tired of your excuses. It looks like a lazy person's staircase, but underneath is a precise machine of gears, chains, motors, and synchronized movement. Each step is connected like a giant moving bicycle chain, circulating continuously through the system. The grooves aren't there for decoration, they help align the steps and reduce slipping, because physics knows people will absolutely try texting while boarding. The handrail moves at nearly the same speed as the steps, so your brain doesn't start questioning reality. That awkward moment when you step off and feel strange for 2 seconds is your body adjusting from moving reference frames. Escalators are basically conveyor belts for dignity, helping humanity avoid cardio one shopping mall at a time. Fact 12. The windshield wiper is one of those inventions nobody appreciates until rain turns the road into a watercolor painting. Its secret is not advanced electronics, but repeated mechanical discipline. A small electric motor creates rotational motion, which is converted into back-and-forth movement through a linkage system. That transformation is classic engineering. Circles becoming lines because life is complicated. The rubber blade uses pressure and surface contact to push water away without scratching glass, ideally. Friction must be balanced perfectly. too little and it smears too much, and it sounds like your car is being haunted. Intermittent settings exist because engineers understood drizzle has commitment issues. Every storm becomes a quiet performance of motion control, and your wipers keep pretending visibility is still an achievable goal. Fact 13. The thermos is basically a bottle that declared war on heat transfer and somehow won. It keeps coffee hot and iced water cold using the same smug principle: insulation. Inside, there are two walls with a vacuum between them, and that vacuum is important because heat hates empty space. Without air, conduction and convection are dramatically reduced, leaving radiation as the main escape route. Many thermoses use reflective inner surfaces to fight that too, bouncing heat back like an emotional boundary. So your soup stays hot because physics built it a fortress. It's less a container and more a diplomatic agreement between temperature and stubbornness. Every time your coffee is still warm hours later, that little metal bottle is quietly outperforming most human long-term commitments. Fact 14. The stapler is office violence made socially acceptable. It looks harmless until you need one and discover every desk has mysteriously hidden them like treasure. A stapler works through leverage, one of the oldest and most reliable physics tricks in history. When you press down, your force is amplified through the pivot point, driving the staple through paper with far less effort than brute strength alone. Then the metal base bends the staple legs inward, locking pages together like tiny silver handcuffs for paperwork. Springs reset the mechanism, ready for your next administrative crisis. It's simple mechanics wearing business casual. Humans created a device whose main purpose is stabbing documents into obedience. And somehow we call that productivity. Physics, once again, chose practicality over emotional support. Fact 15. The car seatbelt is one of the least glamorous life-saving inventions ever made, which is probably why people ignore it until physics files a complaint. When a car stops suddenly, your body would prefer to continue moving forward at the previous speed because inertia is stubborn and does not care about your plans. The seatbelt applies force across stronger parts of your body like your chest and hips, slowing you down more safely over a slightly longer time. That tiny difference in time massively reduces injury. Some belts lock instantly during sudden motion because internal mechanisms detect rapid acceleration changes. It's basically a wearable argument with Newton's first law. Buckling up is not pessimism. It's just admitting momentum has never once been impressed by confidence. Fact 16. The mirror is one of the most trusted liars in human history. People stare into it every morning expecting truth, while physics quietly offers only reflected light and emotional consequences. A mirror works because its smooth, reflective surface causes light rays to bounce in an organized way, preserving the image instead of scattering chaos everywhere. That's why polished glass backed with metal can show your face, while your bedroom wall cannot, thankfully. The image appears reversed left to right, or rather, your brain interprets it that way because reflections are surprisingly rude. Concave and convex mirrors go even further, making you look either cinematic or like a suspicious potato depending on the angle. Every mirror is just optics performing honesty with questionable customer service. Fact 17. The umbrella is humanity's oldest argument with weather, and somehow we still lose. It looks like simple fabric on sticks, but it is actually a portable lesson in force distribution and structural tension. The curved frame uses ribs connected to stretch fabric evenly, creating a dome that redirects falling rain away from your head and directly onto your shoes. Wind, however, takes this personally. When strong gusts hit from below, pressure differences can flip the umbrella inside out like public humiliation with a handle. That dramatic inversion is just fluid dynamics exposing your poor life choices. Better umbrellas use vented canopies to let air pass through, reducing lift and preserving dignity. It's not just rain protection, it's a collapsible engineering project you carry until the sky decides to test your emotional resilience. Fact 18. The door handle is one of the most touched and least appreciated inventions in civilization. Without it, every room would feel like a trust exercise with architecture. Most modern handles rely on torque, turning rotational motion into mechanical action that retracts a latch. When you twist the handle, a spindle transfers that motion inside the lock, pulling back the latch bolt so the door opens instead of judging you silently. It is basic physics doing customer service. The spring mechanism resets everything after release, preparing for the next dramatic entrance. Round knobs require grip and rotation, while lever handles are easier because leverage has always been humanity's favorite shortcut. Every office, bathroom, and suspicious basement depends on this simple system. Physics made privacy possible and awkward interruptions slightly less frequent. Fact 19. The humble can opener proves humans will invent incredibly specific machines rather than admit defeat to soup. A sealed metal can is basically food-wearing armor, and the opener is its tiny mechanical enemy. Most manual can openers use a cutting wheel and a gear-driven turning mechanism. You clamp it onto the rim, rotate the handle, and the sharp wheel slices through thin metal with controlled pressure. That turning resistance you feel is friction negotiating terms. The gears multiply force so your hand doesn't have to fight the entire can like a medieval duel. Then suddenly victory. Beans. Before this invention, people used knives, chisels, and probably regret. The can opener is engineering built for convenience, proving once again that civilization advances mainly because nobody wants to wrestle with canned tomatoes. Fact 20. The humble bathroom scale is one of the few household objects that can ruin your mood before breakfast. Yet underneath the emotional damage is surprisingly elegant physics. Traditional mechanical scales use springs that compress under your weight, and that compression moves a dial needle to reveal either truth or betrayal. Digital scales are even more dramatic, using load cells with strain gauges that measure tiny deformations in metal. When you step on them, the metal bends slightly, electrical resistance changes, and the device calculates your weight with suspicious confidence. Gravity is doing the actual work, pulling you downward while the scale measures the force. It is not judging you, physics is simply being consistent. Unfortunately, consistency is often exactly the problem when cake has recently entered your life. Fact 21. The paper airplane is proof that humans will absolutely turn boredom into accidental aerospace engineering. Fold a piece of paper correctly, throw it with confidence, and suddenly you are negotiating with lift, drag, thrust, and gravity like a tiny unpaid pilot. Its wings create pressure differences as air moves over and under the surface, helping it glide instead of immediately embarrassing itself. The nose shape affects stability, while wing size changes how long your classroom rebellion stays airborne. Too much force and it crashes like overconfidence at a family reunion. Too little and it falls with the dignity of a rejected receipt. Real airplanes use the same core aerodynamic principles, just with more fuel and fewer math teachers yelling. Physics gave us flight. Boredom made it personal. Fact 22. The shower curtain is one of the strangest places to encounter fluid dynamics, mainly because nobody expects physics to attack them while shampooing. Many people notice the curtain mysteriously moving inward during a hot shower, as if the bathroom itself has developed trust issues. This happens because warm air rises and fast-moving water changes air pressure inside the shower area. Lower pressure forms near the spray, and the higher pressure outside pushes the curtain inward like an overly attached ghost. It is not haunted. It is Bernoulli's principle making your morning unnecessarily intimate. Weighted hems exist because engineers got tired of explaining this to angry wet people. Your shower curtain is not plotting against you, it is simply responding to airflow. Unfortunately, physics does not care how rude that feels before coffee. Fact 23. The shopping cart is a perfect symbol of modern civilization. Helpful, slightly broken, and always drifting left for no reason. Its secret genius lies in the front swivel wheels called casters, which automatically align with the direction of motion. That is why pushing feels smooth until one wheel decides it has personal issues. The wheel trails behind its pivot point, allowing self-correction through motion and reducing the effort needed to steer. It is a simple design with suspiciously complex consequences. Weight distribution also matters. Place heavy items badly, and suddenly your groceries become a physics experiment with yogurt. The wobble of a bad cart is not random, it is mechanical rebellion. Every trip to the supermarket is really a negotiation between friction, balance, and your patience with humanity. Fact 24. The vacuum cleaner is what happens when physics gets tired of your floor looking like a crime scene. Most people think it simply sucks dirt away, but technically it creates lower air pressure inside the machine, so higher external pressure pushes air and dust inside. It is less suction and more atmospheric bullying. A motor spins a fan rapidly, forcing air out and creating that pressure difference. Dust travels with the airflow into filters or bags, where it is trapped like tiny bad decisions. The brush roll helps loosen dirt from carpets because apparently even crumbs need convincing. That loud noise is the soundtrack of pressure gradients doing housework. Your vacuum is basically a controlled windstorm with commitment issues, and every clean carpet is just physics pretending to be domestic responsibility. Fact 25. The humble pencil sharpener is a tiny machine built entirely around the human refusal to accept dullness. It looks harmless, but inside it's a lesson in cutting angles, friction, and controlled destruction. The blade is fixed at a precise angle so that as you rotate the pencil, thin layers of wood and graphite are shaved away evenly. Too steep, and it snaps the tip like an overdramatic breakup. Too shallow, and you're just sanding disappointment. The helical motion matters because rotation distributes force smoothly instead of crushing the pencil like bad life advice. Electric sharpeners simply automate your laziness with motors and noise. Every perfect point is geometry winning quietly. It is basically a tiny lathe for school supplies, proving physics will absolutely show up even in your least favorite homework. Fact 26. The clothes iron is domestic thermodynamics with anger issues. It exists because fabric apparently enjoys remembering every poor folding decision you've ever made. The metal sole plate heats up through electrical resistance, converting energy into enough heat to bully wrinkles back into obedience. But heat alone is not the full story. Steam is the real overachiever. Water turns into vapor, penetrates fabric fibers, and helps them relax so pressure can reshape them more easily. It is basically a spa therapy for shirts, except with a real risk of burns and regret. The heavier the iron, the better the pressure distribution, which explains why some feel like gym equipment. That satisfying smooth finish is just molecular structure being persuaded to cooperate. Physics invented ironing, and humanity still somehow blames the shirt. Fact 27. The popcorn popper is one of the few kitchen devices that sounds like it is applauding your snack choices. But popcorn is really a pressure experiment disguised as entertainment. Each kernel contains a tiny amount of water trapped inside a hard starch shell. As heat increases, that water turns into steam, pressure builds, and eventually the shell can no longer maintain its emotional stability. It explodes. The starch inside expands rapidly, cools, and becomes the fluffy white thing we pretend is a healthy snack, if enough butter is involved. Microwave popcorn just adds packaging and dramatic timing. Air poppers use hot moving air because engineers trusted convection more than your judgment with stovetops. Every pop is thermodynamics achieving closure, and honestly, it is the most satisfying kind of controlled explosion available legally. Fact 28. The garage door opener is one of modern life's quiet luxuries, mainly because humans decided stepping out into rain was a personal insult. Press one button, and a giant heavy door moves like it has accepted your authority. But the real hero is the counterbalance system. Most garage doors are surprisingly heavy, yet torsion springs store mechanical energy that offsets most of that weight. The motor is not lifting the whole door, it is mostly guiding something already balanced by spring tension. Without those springs, your opener would cry and resign immediately. Sensors near the floor use infrared beams to stop the door if something crosses the path, because apparently crushing bicycles became bad for customer reviews. It is a perfect mix of force, timing, and suburban laziness engineered into daily convenience. Fact 29. The compass is one of humanity's oldest flexes, a tiny object that quietly tells you the planet has a magnetic personality. It works because Earth itself behaves like a giant magnet, with magnetic fields stretching from pole to pole like invisible cosmic strings. Inside the compass, a lightweight magnetized needle is free to rotate and naturally aligns with that field. It is not magic, it is magnetism with excellent branding. That is why explorers trusted this tiny spinning diva more than their own sense of direction. Nearby metal objects or electronics can interfere, which means your phone and your keys sometimes become accidental villains. Long before GPS started rerouting your mistakes, the compass was already helping people avoid walking confidently into the wrong forest. Physics made navigation possible and overconfidence much harder to defend. Fact 30. The garage can crusher is perhaps the most honest machine ever built because it exists solely to turn your laziness into efficiency. Instead of taking out trash responsibly, humans invented leverage with attitude. A can crusher works by multiplying force through a long handle and pivot point, allowing a small push from your arm to create enough pressure to flatten aluminum like it owes you money. It is pure mechanical advantage, simple and brutally satisfying. Aluminum cans are strong enough to hold pressure from carbonated drinks, but weak enough to surrender dramatically under concentrated force. That loud crunch is not just recycling, it is closure. Hydraulic versions go even further, turning the process into industrial therapy. Physics took your empty soda habit and gave it the emotional payoff of controlled destruction. Fact 31. The retractable measuring tape is basically a metal snake powered by stored impatience. It looks simple until it slices your finger and reminds you engineering has boundaries. Inside, a coiled spring stores energy as you pull the tape outward. Release it, and that spring rewinds everything with the confidence of something that has waited all day for revenge. The tape itself stays straight because of its slightly curved cross-section, which increases stiffness and prevents it from collapsing immediately like your weekend plans. That curve is structural physics pretending to be convenience. The hook at the end even shifts slightly to account for its own thickness, making inside and outside measurements accurate without drama. It is precision disguised as construction chaos, and somehow every household owns one that sounds personally offended. Fact 32. The nail clipper is one of those inventions so common that nobody stops to admire how aggressively practical it is. It takes a problem as old as fingernails and solves it with pure leverage and mild intimidation. When you press the handle, force travels through a pivot and multiplies downward pressure onto two sharp curved blades. That mechanical advantage lets a tiny squeeze from your thumb create enough force to cut keratin cleanly instead of turning grooming into construction work. The curved blade shape matches the natural arc of the nail, which is engineering politely respecting anatomy. That flying nail piece you can never locate afterward is basically physics adding mystery to hygiene. It is a miniature press disguised as personal care, proving leverage can be both elegant and slightly threatening. Fact 33. The automatic sliding supermarket door is society's way of pretending magic is normal. You walk toward it carrying groceries and life regrets, and suddenly the building opens for you like you are important. Most of these doors use motion sensors or infrared detectors to notice movement and trigger the motor system. The motor then pulls belts or gears that slide the door panels apart with suspicious confidence. It feels effortless because friction, rollers, and balance are doing the hard work quietly. Safety sensors prevent the door from closing on people, which is reassuring because humanity absolutely would test that accidentally. The speed is carefully controlled, so nobody gets dramatic. It is basically applied motion physics with customer service training, and every entrance feels like a tiny promotion in your own life. Fact 34. The stapled tea bag is a surprisingly emotional example of structural engineering because civilization apparently depends on leaf-filled paper surviving boiling water. The string, staple, and folded paper all work together through tension and load distribution. When the bag sits in hot water, the fibers must stay intact while allowing water to pass through and extract flavor without releasing a small forest into your mug. The staple keeps the string anchored with minimal material because efficiency is beautiful when caffeine is involved. If the seal fails, your tea becomes soup, and your trust issues deepen. The paper tag exists partly for handling and partly so humans can feel sophisticated while waiting. It is a tiny suspended physics experiment floating in a cup, quietly deciding whether your morning improves or collapses. Fact 35. The yo-yo is proof that physics can be both educational and mildly humiliating in public. It looks like a toy, but it is really rotational motion performing for applause. When you throw it downward, gravitational potential energy becomes kinetic energy, and the spinning yo-yo stores some of that as rotational energy. The string unwinds, tension changes, and if the axle design allows it, the yo-yo can sleep at the bottom instead of immediately returning like an emotionally unavailable boomerang. A sharp tug changes the balance of forces and brings it back up, ideally into your hand and not your face. Modern ball-bearing yo-yos made tricks more advanced and childhood confidence more fragile. Every trick is just momentum, angular velocity, and optimism wearing bright plastic and pretending failure is part of the performance. Fact 36. The clothes hanger is a silent domestic diplomat trying to maintain peace between gravity and your wardrobe. Without it, every shirt would eventually become a wrinkled floor philosophy. A hanger works by distributing the garment's weight across wider support points, reducing concentrated stress that would stretch fabric like a bad decision. The sloped shoulders mimic human form just enough to help clothes keep their shape instead of developing strange geometry. The hook allows free rotation because apparently closets also require tactical maneuvering. Wire hangers are efficient but emotionally hostile, while wooden ones act like they own the place. Every hanger is basically structural support for your social reputation. Physics is standing quietly in your closet, making sure your jacket doesn't look like it lost an argument with gravity overnight. Fact 37. The pepper grinder is one of the few kitchen tools that makes seasoning feel like a dramatic personal statement. Twist it once and suddenly you are a philosopher in a restaurant commercial. Inside, hardened burrs crush peppercorns using compression and shear force rather than slicing them like tiny culinary violence. The adjustable gap between the burrs controls the size of the grind, which means physics is directly involved in whether your pasta tastes refined or like a dare. Whole peppercorns preserve flavor better because their volatile oils stay trapped until crushed, so freshness is really just delayed chemistry. The turning motion converts hand effort into controlled crushing with elegant simplicity. It is a tiny mechanical mill disguised as dinner confidence, and somehow that fresh crack of pepper makes everyone stand straighter. Fact 38. The rolling office chair is one of modern civilization's greatest deceptions because it convinces people movement counts as productivity. You sit, push once, and glide dramatically across the room like a corporate penguin. Its secret lies in casters, low friction, and weight distribution. Each wheel rotates freely while also swiveling, allowing smooth movement in almost any direction without requiring you to rethink your life choices. The gas lift cylinder adjusts height using compressed gas and pressure control, which sounds far more impressive than chair go up. Stability depends on that five-legged base because engineers learned humans absolutely will lean too far for a dropped pen. It is a balance between convenience and workplace slapstick. Physics gave us mobility at desks, and humanity responded by racing down hallways during lunch breaks. Fact 39. The pizza cutter is one of the clearest examples of humans refusing unnecessary effort with admirable passion. Someone looked at a knife and said, "No, I want wheels." The rotating blade works because rolling reduces friction compared to dragging a straight edge through soft food and toppings with commitment issues. As you push forward, force concentrates along the thin circular edge, slicing cleanly without pulling half the cheese into another zip code. The wheel keeps continuous contact, which makes cutting smoother and oddly satisfying in a way that says too much about adulthood. The handle placement improves control by keeping force directly above the blade instead of sideways like chaos. It is essentially a tiny culinary saw pretending to be casual. Physics protects both pizza geometry and emotional stability. Fact 40. The flashlight is humanity's portable declaration that darkness is unacceptable. It seems simple: press button, receive light, feel briefly powerful. But inside, electrical energy travels from the battery through a circuit to power a bulb or LED, converting energy into visible light and some heat because physics never gives full refunds. Reflectors behind the light source help direct the beam forward instead of illuminating only your own confusion. LEDs are especially efficient because they produce more light with less wasted energy, which is why modern flashlights feel like judgment in your pocket. The lens shapes the beam depending on whether you need wide visibility or dramatic detective energy. Every flashlight is controlled electricity with trust issues, helping humans confidently investigate noises they absolutely should have ignored. Fact 41. The bicycle pump is one of humanity's greatest examples of arguing with empty space and somehow winning. It looks like a simple tube with a handle, but inside it is pure pressure physics doing cardio. When you pull the handle up, air enters the chamber. Push it down, and that air gets compressed, increasing pressure until it is forced into the tire through a valve. That valve is basically a tiny one-way bouncer, letting air in and refusing to let it escape like a nightclub with standards. The narrower the chamber, the higher the pressure you can generate, which is why road bike pumps feel personally offended by your existence. Every smooth ride depends on compressed air behaving responsibly. Physics turned invisible gas into transportation support, and honestly, that deserves more respect than most meetings. Fact 42. The can of whipped cream is what happens when dessert meets pressurized engineering and decides to become dramatic. You press the nozzle and suddenly your coffee looks like it has trust fund money. Inside the can, cream is stored with nitrous oxide under pressure. As long as the can stays sealed, everything remains calm and suspiciously elegant. But press the valve, pressure drops, the gas expands, and the cream is forced out while becoming fluffy at the same time. It is basically edible fluid dynamics. The gas dissolves slightly into the cream, helping create that airy texture instead of dairy sadness. Shake the can, and you are just improving the distribution, not performing a ritual. Every perfect spiral on dessert is pressure physics showing off with unnecessary confidence and excellent timing. Fact 43. The trampoline is a backyard reminder that gravity is patient and absolutely loves irony. It promises fun, but what it really delivers is a live demonstration of energy transfer and questionable decision-making. When you jump, gravitational potential energy becomes kinetic energy as you fall. The mat stretches, storing that energy as elastic potential energy in the springs, then releases it upward with suspicious enthusiasm. You call it bouncing. Physics calls it a temporary contract with consequences. The tighter the springs and stronger the mat, the more efficient the rebound, which explains why children become accidental astronauts. Safety nets exist because engineers met humans and lost faith immediately. Every jump is a conversation between momentum and optimism. The landing, unfortunately, is usually where reality submits its final opinion. Fact 44. The garage-level bubble tool, better known as the spirit level, is one of the simplest ways physics quietly judges your incompetence. It is just a tube with liquid and a bubble, yet it can destroy your confidence while hanging one picture frame. The curved vial is slightly higher in the center, so when the surface is perfectly horizontal, the air bubble settles right there like a smug little referee. If the bubble drifts, congratulations! Your shelf is now modern art. Gravity is the real boss here, pulling the liquid downward while the lighter bubble rises to the highest point. Vertical levels work the same way, just rotated to make your walls feel emotionally involved. It is a tiny, transparent lecture on alignment, and somehow that bubble always knows exactly when you are lying to yourself. Fact 45. The pressure cooker is basically a kitchen appliance built on the principle that food, like people, performs differently under pressure. It seals tightly so steam cannot escape easily, which increases internal pressure and raises the boiling point of water. That means food cooks faster because the temperature gets higher than normal boiling without your kitchen becoming a courtroom drama. Beans soften, meat tenderizes, and dinner stops taking emotional hostage situations. The locking lid and safety valve are there because steam under pressure has the temperament of a villain in an action movie. Older cookers sounded like they were planning something illegal, while modern ones just judge you silently. Every fast, tender meal is thermodynamics in formal wear. Physics did not invent patience, so it invented pressure cookers instead. Fact 46. The selfie stick is proof that vanity and leverage can absolutely collaborate. People mocked it, but physics quietly respected the design. A selfie stick works by extending the distance between your hand and your phone using telescoping sections and torque management. The farther the phone is from your grip, the greater the rotational force trying to turn your vacation into expensive regret. That is why balance matters and why cheap sticks feel like betrayal waiting to happen. The clamp holds the phone securely while your wrist becomes an unpaid structural engineer. Bluetooth buttons simply save you from setting a timer and pretending spontaneity. It is basically a portable lever system for better angles and fewer strangers in your photos. Archimedes would be confused, but technically he would approve of the mechanics. Fact 47. The windshield defroster is one of those inventions nobody notices until winter turns your car into a frosted apology. You sit there breathing frustration at the glass while physics quietly explains condensation and temperature differences. Warm air from the car's heating system is directed across the windshield, raising the glass temperature so moisture no longer condenses or freezes there. It is not magic. It is thermal balance with a fan. Cold glass meets warm, moist air, and suddenly your visibility becomes abstract art. The defroster interrupts that drama by restoring temperature sanity. Rear window defrosters use thin electrical heating lines directly in the glass because apparently subtlety is optional. Every clear windshield is just heat transfer doing crisis management, allowing you to drive instead of starring in your own winter documentary. Fact 48. The parachute is perhaps the most dramatic example of physics being the difference between adventure and immediate regret. It looks like fabric having a panic attack, but it is really a brilliant lesson in drag force and controlled descent. When opened, the large canopy creates massive air resistance, slowing the fall by increasing drag against gravity's relentless enthusiasm. You are still falling, just with more negotiation and significantly less screaming. The shape of the canopy helps stability and steering, turning panic into something resembling transportation. Skydivers trust folded nylon because the math is better than optimism. Even tiny reserve parachutes exist because engineers know humans enjoy backup plans when falling from the sky. It is not flying, it is descending with paperwork. Physics makes survival look suspiciously cinematic. Fact 49. The vending machine is one of the few places where physics and disappointment work together in perfect harmony. You insert money, press a button, and trust a metal box to make good decisions, which already feels ambitious. Inside, spiral coils rotate using a small motor, pushing snacks forward with the confidence of a machine that knows you are too tired to argue. Gravity then takes over, dropping your chips into the collection tray like a tiny reward for surviving the day. Unless, of course, your snack gets stuck halfway, creating the ancient human ritual of shaking the machine and pretending that is engineering. Sensors often detect whether the item actually fell because apparently machines also understand betrayal. It is a simple system of motion, balance, and gravity-based customer service. Physics decides whether you get peanuts or a life lesson. Fact 50. The revolving door is architecture's way of reminding you that airflow has opinions. It looks elegant, slightly dramatic, and just complicated enough to make everyone hesitate for 1 second before entering like they are solving a puzzle. Its rotating panels allow people to pass while reducing the direct exchange of indoor and outdoor air, which helps maintain temperature and saves energy. In other words, it exists because heating bills are emotionally exhausting. Pressure differences between inside and outside buildings can create strong drafts, especially in tall offices, and revolving doors help control that chaos. The push feels heavier than expected because you are moving both the door and your own social confidence. It is essentially a giant low-speed turbine for polite people. Physics turned a doorway into a climate control strategy with accidental opportunities for awkward eye contact. Fact 51. The hourglass is one of the oldest ways humans turned sand into emotional pressure. Before digital clocks judged your productivity, there was this elegant glass device silently reminding you that time does not care about your excuses. Its magic is really granular flow physics. Fine sand passes through a narrow opening at a surprisingly consistent rate, largely independent of how much sand remains above. That reliability made hourglasses useful long before batteries and annoying phone alarms. The narrow neck controls the flow, while gravity ensures the performance continues without motivational speeches. Flip it over, and suddenly you feel like a wizard managing pasta. It is simple, visual, and strangely aggressive during board games. Every grain falling is just physics performing passive-aggressive scheduling. Time management has never looked so calm while feeling so personally insulting. Fact 52. The spray bottle is basically a handheld weather system for people who do not trust dust. You squeeze the trigger and suddenly your kitchen gets a light rainstorm with citrus fragrance and judgment. Inside, a small pump and one-way valves create pressure that forces liquid through a narrow nozzle. That nozzle breaks the liquid into tiny droplets through atomization, which is science's fancy way of saying make water dramatic. The smaller droplets spread more evenly and evaporate faster, which is why cleaning products feel more efficient than simply throwing water at your problems. The trigger design uses leverage, so your fingers do not need the strength of a medieval blacksmith. Every mist of glass cleaner is fluid dynamics doing domestic theater. Physics looked at housekeeping and said, fine, but let's at least make it satisfying. Fact 53. The automatic toilet paper holder in public restrooms is proof that even hygiene can be powered by rotational mechanics and quiet suspicion. Traditional holders already rely on low-friction rolling, letting the paper spin smoothly instead of turning every bathroom visit into upper body training. But larger commercial dispensers add springs, controlled tension, and locking mechanisms because apparently humanity cannot be trusted near paper. The roll rotates around a central axis, reducing the force needed to pull while preventing the entire thing from unraveling like your life on a Monday morning. Some designs intentionally add resistance so people use less paper, which means physics has officially joined budget management. That little flap pressing against the roll is not decorative. It is economic warfare. Every successful tier is a tiny victory over friction, impatience, and public restroom architecture. Fact 54. The turntable record player is one of the rare machines that makes nostalgia sound expensive. It looks classy because it literally turns scratches into music, and somehow convinces people that inconvenience is romance. A vinyl record stores sound as tiny grooves, and the stylus rides through them like a microscopic detective following evidence. Vibrations from those grooves move the needle, which converts mechanical motion into electrical signals, and suddenly Frank Sinatra is in your living room, judging your furniture. The turntable must spin at a precise speed because even small changes make everyone sound emotionally unstable. Counterweights balance the tone arm so the needle presses just enough without destroying the record like an aggressive raccoon. It is pure analog physics with excellent marketing. Music apparently sounds better when it requires commitment and occasional dusting. Fact 55. The corkscrew is humanity admitting that wine should involve at least a small engineering challenge. Nobody opens a bottle and thinks, this should require torque. Yet here we are. The spiral metal screw called the worm converts rotational force into forward motion as it digs into the cork. Twist enough, and you have successfully threaded steel into compressed tree bark, which is already strangely poetic. Then leverage takes over. Winged corkscrews or lever models multiply force, so the cork rises smoothly instead of launching into your ceiling like a celebration gone wrong. Friction between cork and glass is the real villain, holding everything together with unreasonable dedication. Every satisfying pop is just stored tension finally losing an argument. Physics, once again, made relaxation slightly more complicated, but dramatically more satisfying. Fact 56. The pogo stick is what happens when someone looked at walking and decided it lacked unnecessary danger. It is a vertical transportation device powered by springs, balance, and confidence levels that should probably be reviewed professionally. When you jump down, your weight compresses the spring inside, storing elastic potential energy like a coiled topology. As the spring expands, that energy pushes you upward again, ideally in a controlled bounce and not directly into a neighbor's mailbox. Your body constantly adjusts center of mass to stay upright, which means riding one is basically performing live physics with your knees as unpaid interns. The handle provides steering, but let's be honest, mostly emotional support. Every bounce is a negotiation between gravity and optimism. Childhood taught us many lessons. The pogo stick specialized in immediate consequences. Fact 57. The automatic hand dryer is the final boss of public restroom physics because it turns basic hygiene into a wind tunnel experience. You place your hands underneath and suddenly a machine begins aggressively questioning your moisture levels. Most dryers use sensors to detect motion and activate a motor that drives a fan, pushing air across a heating element, or in newer models, blasting high-speed unheated air like a tiny airport runway. The goal is evaporation, not kindness. Fast-moving air removes the thin layer of moisture from your skin, helping water evaporate much faster than standing there, waving your hands like a confused magician. Some models are so powerful they make you reconsider your fingerprints. That loud noise is simply air pressure and engineering with anger issues. Physics made drying efficient, and public bathrooms made it slightly confrontational. Still think everyday objects are boring? Physics is running your entire life behind your back.